Kraken. In 1861, the French ship Alecton snagged a huge lump of flesh near the Canary Islands. The crew fought it like a living anchor, and they hauled up pale arms with suckers and a bucket-sized beak. That sounds like a nightmare, yet it lines up with something real. Experts later tied that torn mass to a giant squid called Architeuthis, which means the monster had a real body, not just a scary name. Long before that, Norwegian stories from the 1700s kept talking about a beast so big it could look like an island, and people feared it could drag ships under. A bishop named Eric Pontoppidan even wrote that the Kraken was the largest monster in the ocean. And that quote stuck because it feels like someone describing a thing they truly dreaded. Then the proof got even louder. In Newfoundland, a minister named Moses Harvey got a full giant squid laid out on his table, and the photos became famous because the tentacles looked endless. One set of arms measured 9 meters, and seeing that hanging over a table edge makes the sea feel too close. Modern science, adds a clean number to the fear. Female giant squid can reach about 10.5 meters, and their eyes can be as big as dinner plates, which makes deep water feel like a place with watching faces. Whales also wash up with round scars that look like perfect rings, and those marks match sucker cups. That points to real fights in the dark with sperm whales, not a floating ghost story. The Kraken idea grew from fast glimpses, big fear, and a real animal that people almost never saw clearly. One thought still bites, because if one squid grew larger than the ones we have measured, the old sea talk starts to sound less silly, and that pushes us toward another long shape people swore they saw. Sea serpent. The oarfish can reach 8 to maybe 11 meters, and that is already longer than most boats feel safe beside. Its body looks like a silver ribbon, and its fin shines bright red like a warning flag. Now picture rough water and low light, and that long body rises near a wooden boat. Calm words vanish fast, because your eyes see a snake shape first, even if your brain wants a safer answer. Sailors in the 1800s wrote about huge sea serpents twisting on the surface right before storms, and those notes spread because they matched a fear people already carried. In Japan, the oarfish had an even heavier name, messenger from the sea god's palace, and some people treated it like a sign tied to quakes or tsunamis. Here's the part most people miss. Oarfish live far down, around 200 to 1,500 meters, so humans almost never see them in normal moments. They tend to show up near the surface when they are sick or dying, which means the rare time someone sees one is also the most wild-looking time. When an oarfish hits the top layer, it can thrash and bend like a moving rope, and that red fin can flare while the body folds and rolls. That single scene can turn into a sea serpent story in one night, because the fish looks like it is fighting the ocean itself. Modern biologists say there is no solid link between oarfish beachings and earthquakes, so that part does not hold up when tested. The serpent link fits much better because the shape, the movement, and the timing match what sailors described. Even a quiet beach can feel haunted when a long ribbon body shows up in daylight. That kind of shock also set up another sea legend, where tired eyes turned a gentle animal into a half-human dream. Mermaids. In January 1493, Christopher Columbus wrote that he saw 3 mermaids. He also wrote they were not so beautiful as the stories claimed, and that blunt line changes the whole mood. Those mermaids were likely manatees or dugongs, which are real sea mammals with round bodies and slow, gentle motion. They belong to a group called Sirenia, and that group includes 3 manatee species and 1 dugong species. So the myth has real animals sitting right under it. The setup matters more than the art. Sailors could spend months at sea, and their days had endless water, harsh sun, and long stretches with no friendly faces. Low light makes shapes look softer, and distance makes details melt away. A manatee can lift its head with big dark eyes, and its chest can look oddly human from far away. Then it rolls, its tail comes up, and a lonely mind fills in the rest, like hair, arms, and a perfect face. A story spreads faster than a careful check, because a good story gives people something to hold. Columbus wrote that these mermaids rose well out of the sea, yet he added that their faces had some masculine traits. That line sounds like his own eyes arguing with the picture in his head, because the real animal refused to match the sweet legend he expected. Later, paintings made mermaids slim and shining, while the real animal stayed heavy and wrinkled, eating seagrass in peace. Yet sailor journals and repeated sightings kept the idea alive because people trusted what a captain wrote more than what a calm sea cow truly was. Once people accepted a lovely creature that was real in a twisted way, they also accepted land tales where a single horn meant power, danger, and a kind of holy fear. Unicorn. Pliny the Elder described a one-horned creature with a horn about 90 centimeters long. He called it fierce and untamable, and he gave it a strange mix of parts that sounded like a puzzle. He wrote of a body like a horse, a head like a stag, and feet like an elephant, with one black horn. That mashup sounds wild, yet pieces of it match real animals people actually met, especially through trade and travel stories. In India, the greater one-horned rhinoceros has thick skin folds and a big shoulder hump that can look like armor from the side. In tall grass, the horn stands out as the clear feature your eyes lock onto, and the rest of the body can turn into whatever your mind expects. Some scholars think traders carried tales of that rhino west, and listeners who had never seen one loved the idea right away. A single horn is simple to picture, and it feels like a sign you can point at, even if the rest of the animal gets changed with every retelling. A second real root sits in desert heat. The Arabian oryx is a white antelope with two long straight horns, and from the side those horns can line up so they look like one. Distance and heat haze can hide the second horn, and the animal can vanish fast, so the story becomes one horn, because that is what the eye caught. Then a colder clue arrived. In 2016, new dating on Elasmotherium sibiricum suggested this huge hairy rhino may have lived alongside early humans, and some writers nicknamed it the Siberian unicorn. That nickname sticks because it turns a fairy tale shape into a heavy animal that could shake the ground. Once people started building legends from real bodies and real bones, the same habit showed up again in Greece, where one big skull hole fooled people in the most direct way possible. Cyclops. In 1914, an Austrian paleontologist named Othenio Abel suggested a sharp idea about cyclopes. He said people in antiquity may have found strange skulls and built their one-eyed giant stories around them. Greek myths talked about cyclopes as giant workers with a single eye in the middle of the forehead, and stories said they forged Zeus's thunderbolts. That sounds like pure fantasy until you picture someone digging in rocky ground and finding a skull that looks wrong. On islands like Crete and Sicily, people found large skulls with a round opening right in the center. A shepherd or farmer would stare at that hole and think one huge eye, because the simple answer feels obvious when you have no guidebook. The truth is almost sneaky. Those skulls came from dwarf elephants and their ancient relatives, and that center opening held the nose, trunk area. The real eye sockets sat on the sides, and they were easy to miss if you did not know what you were looking at. Now imagine the moment a goat herder pulls dirt away, and that face shape appears. There are no museums nearby, no photos of elephant skulls on paper, and no teacher to explain how a trunk fits in that big hole. The story that pops out is the story that fits fear best, and fear loves a giant. Later digs showed those islands once held small elephants shaped by Long Island living, and their bones stayed hidden like props waiting for a storyteller. A single skull can create a whole monster job, a whole monster home, and a whole monster hunger. Once giant bones become proof in a person's mind, the leap to dragons feels easy, especially when real teeth and real reptiles keep adding fuel. Dragons. Komodo dragons can reach 3 meters, and that is a real reptile you can trip over in the wrong place. They eat meat, and their bite is toxic, so the fear part of dragon already exists without any wings. People across China, Europe, and many other places drew long-bodied beasts with claws and teeth, and the shape stayed close, even when the names changed. That repeat pattern makes more sense when you look at the roots people had in front of them. One root was fossils. Farmers in China, Greece, and the Middle East dug up huge bones and teeth, and without any idea of dinosaurs, those pieces looked like monsters that died hard. A long backbone could become a dragon spine, and a heavy tooth could become a fang from a beast that once ruled a valley. A second root was living danger. Crocodiles can explode out of rivers and pull animals, or even people under, and that kind of attack burns into memory fast. Add fog, dust, or a quick glimpse, and the mind fills in extra parts like wings or fire, because fear likes to finish the picture. A third root was mixed threats. History.com notes that many dragon myths blend parts of snakes, wolves, birds, lions, and lizards into one hybrid monster. That mix feels like a worst parts bundle of things that can bite, crush, or poison you, all packed into one shape you can warn your kids about. Over time, cultures tuned dragons to match local worries like floods, war, disease, or greed. Some dragons guarded gold, others guarded rivers, and a few brought rain and luck, which shows the same outline could mean danger or help depending on what people needed. Once you accept that myths can grow from bones and dirt, a little people's story becomes harder to laugh at because scientists found real small human bones in a cave. Hobbits. In 2003, scientists found a tiny human skull in an Indonesian cave, and the nickname came fast. The species was called Homo floresiensis, and the first strong skull was labeled LB1. LB1 came from a small adult about 1.1 meters tall, and later bones showed this was a group, not a one-off body. Those small humans lived on the island of Flores between about 100,000 and 50,000 years ago, and that timeline puts them uncomfortably close to our own story. They used stone tools and hunted small animals, which shows they handled life with skill, not luck. The island around them was strange too, with dwarf elephants called stegodon, giant rats the size of rabbits, and huge Komodo dragons living in the same places. That mix makes Flores feel like a different planet, yet it was still Earth and real humans lived there. Then a newer find pushed the story deeper. In 2024, a tiny upper arm bone from Mata Menge was dated to about 700,000 years old, and it was described as the smallest human limb bone ever found. That one bone suggests the small body trait appeared very early, and it did not wait until late in their timeline. One researcher said the arm bone shows an early and dramatic reduction in body size in this group, which is a direct quote that hits like a door slam. Small humans were part of the plan on that island for a very long time. Their end still feels tense. A 2025 study looked at cave rocks and found rainfall on Flores dropped hard between 76,000 and 50,000 years ago, cutting water that Stegodon and these small humans needed, and Homo sapiens moved into the area around the same time. Local legends also talk about small forest people, and nobody can prove the link. Yet the place and timing sit close enough to make you stare at the dark tree line a little longer. You just watched myths turn into real bones, real fish, and real fear. and that should make you wonder what else got hidden in plain sight. Drop your guess in the comments, then tap the next video now.